Back in 1986, when I started college in the fall of that year, I always thought I had a pretty rich musical palette. Well, turns out I was looking for something more. Hey, it's Michael Douglas. Welcome to this edition of Dr. Pundit, where we talk about music and not medicine. And before we start talking about my musical wants and desires at that critical point in my life, I want to ask you to like and subscribe to this channel. If you watch this video and you enjoy its content and you want to keep me giving it to you, you'll like and subscribe, right? You know, get the video higher in the algorithm, help me out. But you know, truth is, I'll do these videos regardless because I love doing them, and I just hope you acknowledge it in some way. So whatever you choose to do. Now, back to the intro here. In the fall of 1986, I was starting college at Vanderbilt University en route to a degree in mathematics. I was starting my pre-medical journey, as it were, but I had come armed with a collection of about 250 vinyl albums in my collection by that time, and pretty much all of them were R&B and dance pop and not really any other genre of music. And I look back on the last 37 or so years at that particular point in my life where I was searching for broadening my musical landscape. And I really had stuck to the previous, I suppose, 8 years or so when I really got into listening to music, to listening to the predominant music in my market. That would be R&B, disco, post-disco, dance pop, you know, groups like the Jacksons, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Earth, Wind and Fire, the OJs. I mean, there's nothing wrong with these groups, but of course, the slice of musical genres and the overall palette of musicianship and the appreciation of different genres, well, it was only a small sliver of that. So where to go, what to do? In addition to starting to buckle down and study, part of me was interested in exploring newer types of music. And rock seemed the next logical choice, especially more melodic rock. And I'll tell you, with this album I'm about to review, this was more of a melodic jazz type of flavor. And it introduced to me this guy, Mark Knopfler. Of course, I'm talking about Dire Straits. And yes, I'd heard the song The Sultans of Swing a few times growing up, but I really never, it was a pop song from 1978 or so, hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, but again, that was the year I just started getting into music, and I was into the Bee Gees, Andy Gibb, Anita Ward, Ring My Bell, disco, Gloria Gaynor, all that stuff, right? So I never had more than a passing sort of acknowledgement of the existence of him as an artist. Well, in 1985, when I was a senior in high school, the track Money for Nothing was a big #1 hit, and it was by far the poppiest thing the band Dire Straits had ever done. At the time, it was riding the top of the charts. I really never, I acknowledged it, I listened to it, I thought it was really cool, I guess. It was a parody of MTV, and being a Gen Xer, I was part of that MTV generation. So, it was passable, but I never thought, hey, I want to check this band out. Until my roommate, I won't mention his name, was, he had the cassette tape on autoplay, and by far was playing it more than any other tape I thought in his collection. And I said, hey, I'd like to listen to that. I popped it in my Walkman and listened to it for a few days. And I said, I really like this. This isn't bad. And this wasn't what I thought. And this is a great compliment to what I've listened to, but never really knew was really out there until I really got into it, I suppose, if all that makes sense. So, Brothers in Arms. I bought the CD a couple of weeks later, and this is around the time of my 18th birthday in 1986. And I was playing it for a few years. It was, a great album. But toward the end of the decade, I started investigating this band a little bit more, listening to some of their back catalog, and really got into it. And this album ushered in, I think, my appreciation for more of a melodic jazz-inflected rock. I was just getting into groups that I never thought I would get into at that time as well, on the harder rock side, of course, like Van Halen, to an extent Bon Jovi's early stuff, music that I never thought I would touch, but Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits, really kind of showed me the way. And Brothers in Arms is a good album to start with. Brothers in Arms is a classic released in 1985, and I think it's best known for its distinctive sound, like I said, blending rock with jazz and even a little bit of Americana. So on this edition of Dr. Pundit, the album review will be of Brothers in Arms. Not my favorite album, I probably play it maybe once a year, but a solid album that I think about from time to time. So here's my somewhat quick track-by-track review of that album. First, So Far Away. Now, this was a follow-up to their two top 10 hits, Money for Nothing, which hit number 1, and Walk of Life, which hit number 7. So Far Away really drew me in with Knopfler's guitar work. And the kind of wistful, country-inflected, like I said, Americana sound really drew me in. It's the first track on the album, and it starts out with Knopfler's smooth vocals and guitar style, and this sense of longing, this kind of twang without the twang, So Far Away. The next track on the album, of course, was the number 1 smash, Money for Nothing. And its lyrics, above everything else, hooked the listener in. And the song explored the lifestyles of those in rock, and for what I understand, it could have been somewhat of an indictment of the way he thought, Mark Knopfler, the way he thought he would fit into that lifestyle. And of course, Sting of the Police had a nice background touch to this song as well, and it made it all the more accessible. Their first and only number 1 hit, Dire Straits, Money for Nothing. Walk of Life, of course, the third track on the album, was the second and final top 10 song from the album. I think Knopfler had this song in here to kind of contrast the album's semi-darker themes. I think the third track in the album really is a good location for it, and it's that respite of feel-good riffs that make it an essential part of the album. And of course it was, like I said, a top 10 pop hit. Walk of Life, the third track on Brothers in Arms. The track, Your Latest Trick, returns back to that jazz-inflected sound, this time with a layer of noir, I suppose. Smoky, jazzy, great song to go back into the album after the previous Walk of Life track. That was the third track on the album. Your Latest Trick, track number 4. Track number 5 is a track called Why Worry. I think it's the most introspective track on the album, and it shows us his songwriting chops, and it's a song that gives, I think, the album that kind of depth, not as superficial, obviously, as some of the bigger hits in terms of the lyric. Why Worry is track number 5 on the album. If you're keeping track with themes on the album, track number 6, a track called Ride Across the River, presents a vivid picture of a dangerous journey, which, without getting into too much detail, references political struggles. It's probably, I guess, the headiest song on the album. Ride Across the River. Track number 6 on Brothers in Arms. Track number 7, This Man's Too Strong, is another introspective track that delves into the concepts of power and how it's used, and the complexities of human nature that surround that power. It's a song that's very compelling in its atmospheric nature, and I would say it's probably if I had to rank songs in the album, it would be behind So Far Away and Walk of Life as my third most favorite song in the album. The Man's Too Strong, track number 7 on Brothers in Arms. Track number 8, almost writing out the CD, is another hopeful track, not as poppy and happy-go-lucky as Walk of Life, but uplifting with its themes of diversity, hence the title, One World. And finally, the ninth and last track on the album, and I think 9 tracks on this album is a very economical album. It's easy to listen to, and I think it complements and basically stitches all the songs together on this album. And it's a track called the title cut, Brothers in Arms. It is an anti-war song, listening to the lyrics. And the lyrics go a little bit like this. I'll just end it out. Sometimes I talk about the lyrics in songs. Again, kind of an anti-war feel for this. The lyrics go like this. These mist-covered mountains are a home now for me, but my home is the lowlands and always will be. Someday you'll return to your valleys and your farms, and you'll no longer burn to be brothers in arms. Through these fields of destruction, baptisms of fire, I've witnessed your suffering as the battle raged high, and though they did hurt me so bad, in the fear and alarm, you did not desert me, my brothers in arms. There's so many different worlds, so many different suns, and we've just one world, but we live in different ones. Okay, very interesting there. Again, I think his smoky voice, the atmospheric tone, the lyrics make this another standout track, the title track, Brothers in Arms. And again, I think it's a great album. I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars if I could rate. I guess I just did. And I credit this album for opening my musical horizons at the age of 17, going on 18, that fall of 1986, when I hit the world on my own, as it were, and started college. So maybe it's also a euphemism for my musically, in terms of appreciation, coming out, I suppose. And there you have it, another album review on Dr. Pundit, Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. I'm Michael Douglas, and if you like what you saw in this video, again, don't hesitate to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to bring you the next video. And as the late great Barry White used to say, let the music play.